OTAs are starting in Kansas City. They're just going to be minus a few familiar faces today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. This is the perfect time to make every moment more. Right now, you're getting $150 back for winning a $5 bet. You new customers can get on it right now at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Go there now and get started. We're going to get started with what is the next phase of the offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to begin OTAs here on Monday as we're recording this night before we're getting ready for it. A couple of guys are not ready for it, and unfortunately, there's been some changes. There are going to be some announcements. We're going to go through everything that happened over the weekend and what the changes to the roster are. Chris is going to start it off from Chiefs Corner. You can check out all of the cap maneuvers, everything you need on the quarterbacks, the statistics that are going to make an impact at Chiefs Corner. Go sub over there to him. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, along with NFL33.com and RGR Football. You can find more content on all of those. And if you just need that much more, and you're an everyday listener already, we appreciate you, Locos, and we try to give you everything we can at 816-357-8781. Go ahead and get signed up there if you want that much more. We are going to go through what is going on with a couple of stumbling tackles, had a rough weekend, and what it means for this process. But before that, where is and how is this running back room going to pan out? Because our first topic today is a shocker, I think, certainly for me. The Chiefs moved on from one of their veteran running backs that we think was going to be a prime competition. We're going to run down the running back room, but it starts and ends, obviously, with Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're going to be the primary two. But one guy that I thought was going to put a major role, and we both thought was going to contribute to this upcoming season, La'Mical Perine, was released over the weekend. That caught me by total surprise. I thought he was pushing to be that third back and a relief role that they could just maneuver in and out as they needed to for both the guys in front of him. Is that what you saw his role, and how shocked were you?
I was very surprised. I did not expect them to bring in to release Perine. He didn't really do much last year when he did play, so I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's a huge loss. Didn't really move the chains very much for the Chiefs, and didn't get much playing time when he did play. It's interesting though to go into the season, go into OTAs, go into training camp with the amount of youth that they have at that position. They don't have a veteran right now. The veteran on the roster is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and that is a lot different than I was expecting going into this. And don't get me wrong, Perine isn't going to be a guy that was going to add a lot of veteran experience to that roster. He doesn't have a ton of time in the NFL either. But to go from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to Pacheco to I think they have Ingram now, and Ingram and Perine had the same amount of time. That's just interesting that they're going to be so youthful at that position.
Yeah, so is it fair to say he had the most touches outside of Clyde and Isaiah?
Yeah, I think so.
I think that's pretty close. And that probably is why I was leaning that way. I felt like he had upside. I felt like he was starting to get to the point where he understood a little bit better what he was seeing in front of him in terms of the blocking. And I felt like he was a guy who could take a step forward onto this roster. Clearly, other guys have passed him by. Doesn't mean he wasn't still making some progress. Just means they might have been surprised. We're going to talk about the rest of the running back room coming up here. But this is, I think, a bigger symptom of what's going on in that position group, in that guys that you thought were going to play a role are now not. We didn't think Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going to be back on this roster this season, yet he is. So it's a lot of Isaiah and a bunch of question marks as far as I'm concerned at this point about what they have right now.
Well, and they still have cap room that they could go out and they could sign somebody. So that's something that's possible. But it's curious because you sit here and, like you said, it's a lot of youth. And you go back and you look at last year, and it was Clyde Edwards-Helaire was really the third running back off the bench. It was a situation where he was coming in and he was backing up Jerick McKinnon. He was backing up Isaiah Pacheco. And so to see him go to the second running back position, at least that's the way it looks right now. And we'll have a lot more to talk about on that here in a couple of minutes. But it's just interesting because I did not expect him to take that move, considering I didn't think that he proved that he was going to be able to step into what Jet was able to do last year. And Jet is still sitting out there as well. So, just a thought, it's possible that they move on from one running back and maybe they're bringing in another one that they already know. We'll have to watch that and see what happens.
I certainly think it could be a possibility. It's about health and it's about determination, right? Obviously, the number one is now looks like it's gone to Xavier Worthy. So maybe there's a little bit of rigmarole you got to do there. But I don't think there's anybody, you correct me if you think something different right now, just looking at this roster room, and we're going to run down the room in the next, coming up here in a couple minutes, folks. I don't see anyone that can play that type of role in terms of the speed and the receiving aspect. There's a couple of guys that show some pop and have some, especially some yak skills in this group. But I'm not sure about the route running, the ability to just slide into the offense. So I like the idea. I wanted McKinnon back when the season ended. I'm a little surprised it hasn't happened there, but I don't see anybody that's going to step into that role right now.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. And the other thing to remember when you start talking about signing guys, and this goes for any position, not just running back, they no longer count against the comp pick formula. So that is something to think about. They could go and they could sign anybody at this point, and it would not count against the comp pick formula. And they're not supposed to give very many comp picks at all anyway. So kind of makes a little bit of a difference if they want a comp pick to wait until after that time frame. It'll be interesting to see if McKinnon wants to come back and play. The other interesting one is, re-examine it and see what he has and see if maybe they're going to go in a different direction with the running back room. And we're going to talk about that, like you said, here in a couple of minutes. But you're right. They don't have somebody that can step in and play Jet's role. And that's the concerning part, because you don't have that guy that's going to be coming out of the backfield catching the ball like Jet did, unless maybe you're thinking you're going to use one of your wide receivers to do that and maybe change up the way you do things a little bit. That could be interesting as well.
It definitely could be interesting. I want to see how they get there, and we're going to get
I was just going to say, you still could see one coming out of the backfield.
Yeah, it could certainly happen. We're going to get a first look here tomorrow or today, as you might be listening to this, and we'll run it down for you when it does happen. How that goes about it and what it might look like. I don't think I'm going to get my wishes, but what is the room now? We're going to cover that coming up next on the Locked On Podcast Network. Just like the race for the division title or anything else, right now it's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL. Unfortunate to see what my Avs did in the double overtime. Just let the puck go through the crease without any opposition. It was difficult to watch. And if you had made yourself visible on that bet, you might have come away big, because FanDuel's giving you right now the opportunity to bring home a big win of your own by getting in the action. Right now, new customers are getting $150 back in bonus bets when you win a $5 bet. Super simple. It's $150 back no matter what, based on spreads, money lines, player props, whatever you're looking for. Just win a $5 bet and you get that $150. It's over at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can make every single playoff shot count. Unfortunately, not like the Avs did, but the Stars will go on and we'll see what happens to them. Check out the NBA and the NHL playoffs and get in the action at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So the question becomes, even without La'Mical Perine, we're staring at 7 running backs in this offseason right now. There'll be some churn, but I believe my count's accurate there. Am I right?
I think it's 8, but
is it 8
total?
Pretty close.
Okay. Yeah, including your boy Carson Steele.
Right, and he's my guy. Let's see. I haven't been able to get him on the show yet, but not for a lack of trying. His agent, if you happen to be Carson's agent, somebody please answer me on email. I would appreciate that. There's a number of options, and I think when you run them down, and Craig, you hit any name that I missed, but outside of Clyde and Isaiah, you have Generic Prince, who I would put in the catbird seat right now for the 3rd spot. You have Keontae Ingram. You have Reese Zamet. Lewis Reese Zamet, Reese Lightning as they call him. Hassan Hall, Carson Steele, Amani Bailey, 2 very, very fresh signings here that we've seen just a glimmer of, and hopefully we'll get some more information this week and next week. Is that it, or am I missing somebody?
No, that sounds like that's it. And you mentioned the guy. it's just going to be interesting to see what they're able to do with Reese Salmon and how they get him used, because I do feel like when you start looking at how this running back room is going to shake out this year, it's going to be a question of, are you going to have a fullback? If you're going to have a fullback, Carson Steele is probably going to be on the team, unless they go out and they sign somebody else. That's the way that's looking. But then you start looking at the running backs otherwise. And while we start talking about running backs, I mean, you have to look at the other positions. How many tight ends do they keep and how many wide receivers? All that plays into how many running backs they can keep. But I do think it's probably going to be 3 running backs, if you keep a fullback, or maybe 4 total. And I would say Deneric Prince is probably a guy that is going to be, he's in the catbird seat right now, other than Lewis Reese Salmon. I think that, and you have to say that they've already seen something from Amani Bailey. I mean, they saw something in rookie camp. So you get an idea of what you are going to get from him. That can give you an idea as to what he can contribute this year. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of things that he's going to need to work on to be able to make the roster, but lots of different ways you could go with the running back room, and 4 is probably going to be your limit. So you're kind of limited as to how you're going to make that work when you already got the top 2 figured out. And I already thought, and we already discussed this, Perine was probably going to be 3. So now he's gone. Now you've got probably 2 spots open.
Yeah. And I want to take a moment just to expand on Carson Steele, because it's our first opportunity to do so. I just want to emphasize this. 5.1 is the magic number for me. Yes, he is built like a fullback, over 225 pounds, 228, I believe, last time I saw him weigh in. But 5.1 yards per carry is what he did at UCLA last year for 850 yards on the ground. He is more than a classic fullback. He's more than what you saw Sherm do a few years ago when everybody got injured one day in Denver and he had to run the ball 27 times or whatever it was. He is, I think, more of a tweener back in terms of being able to carry the rock and play out of the tailback position than I think most people give him credit for. Doesn't mean that that's going to be his primary role, but I think when it comes down to, like you said, there's 2 spots open, versatility might be what makes the day.
Can he run the wheel route? That's what I want to know. That's the only thing I really care about. If he's going to play the fullback position.
I'm pretty sure. I'm going to have to look up the actual receptions here while we're talking, but I just want to lay that out, because I'm not saying that he should be the 3rd running back at all. But I do think that the versatility that he does bring helps there. Last year at UCLA, 20 targets, 17 receptions for 9.6 per reception. So I'm not going to say that's terrible.
Well, the other question is going to become, what is his role on special teams? Because that was one of Sherman's biggest deals, was playing special teams. So that is going to help determine whether or not Carson Steele can be on this roster. Is, can he make his name in a special teams role of some sort? It doesn't have to be a core guy that's playing all 4, but it has to be somebody that's going to be on the field, that's going to be in probably, I would imagine, probably kickoff coverage and probably punt coverage. That would be my guess, but we'll have to see. Yeah. I mean, that's the big key is the other question that we can't answer, and this is going to be something to watch throughout the entire offseason, is how do the new kickoff rules change what the Chiefs might look for, and what the NFL might look for when it comes to special teams players, because it's a lot different than it was before.
And I know the rule is set, but I don't think necessarily that the first few weeks of the season are going to be representative of what it ends up being. I do think there'll be some evolution.
I'm sure.
There that they're going to see them adjust. Whether that means it's more linebacker types that have some speed because you're not covering probably as much distance, I don't know. But I'm not trying to make it all about the fullback type guy too. But the reason that I bring him up first is Carson Steele represents an aspect of the game that is specific. He is a power back. Reese Salmon is a speed back. That's what he does. And we've already identified that just because of his background. That is more of what McKinnon was, but obviously McKinnon has the catching experience and all that. I want to leave Reese Salmon some space to not set the expectations because he can catch a rugby ball, he can catch a football efficiently.
Yeah, and I do think it's interesting that one of the things that they were doing with Reese Salmon is they were getting him out in passing routes. He was playing and getting out in a lot of routes in rookie minicamp, and I expect that to continue in OTAs, and I expect that to continue in training camp too. And I think that they're really going to work to see if he has the hands to play a McKinnon type role. I'm not trying to call him McKinnon, but he could play a McKinnon-like role with his speed and his ability if he has the ability to do it. And that's what they have to figure out is, does he have the ability to step in and play that role? Especially when you're talking about a guy that is going to be that small, that's going to be coming in and taking NFL hits for the first time, figuring all that out, figuring out you can't be all the way up. You have to come down a little bit and, get your pads lower. As Andy Reid would like to say, Reese Sammet is going to figure out really quickly that he can't run it, his full height. So
Uncle Andy's pretty nice about the way he puts him in that.
Yeah. And how does he how do they address that? And how does he adjust to what he's going to have to change? Because there are going to be some things he's going to have to change.
Yeah. And I think the reason we bring the two of these guys up is because they have one aspect that stands out. Whereas I do feel that Deneric Prince is probably, in terms of investment, a little bit of exposure to the offense, he's probably the guy that right now is in that catbird seat, like we said. But he is also a guy that is a well-rounded back, but not really a master of none. He doesn't stand out in any one aspect, much like Isaiah Pacheco, I think, stands out running the ball. Clyde probably running the ball inside. I don't think there's enough stand-up between Deneric Prince, Keontae Ingram, Hassan Hall, and obviously haven't seen enough of Amani Bailey, and he does have a lot of yak ability. So try not to discount him yet. Yeah. But I need somebody to stand out in a way that adds to the offense.
Amani Bailey's going to be another interesting one to watch, because they saw what they wanted to see at rookie minicamp, and they went and released La'Mical Perine. And I do think it has something to do with what they saw in rookie minicamp. I'm not saying it has to do with Bailey. It could do with, Steele. It could do with Reese Sammet. Who knows who they were looking at rookie minicamp saying, okay, well, maybe we'll give Perine a chance at catching on somewhere else, because I think that's kind of the way they look at that. But it is going to be interesting to see what Amani Bailey is able to bring to the team. But also don't forget, it's very early. We're talking OTAs right now. When you get into the preseason, watch out for the preseason warriors that show up in the third and fourth quarter that just destroy other teams, because we've seen several instances. Deneric Prince is a great example where he played very well last year and couldn't get it done and couldn't make it to the field. So just be careful on that one as well.
Yeah, the Darwin Thompsons of the world that have wowed us early in the preseason that we don't get to see later on. That is a worry. There are a couple of other worries going on right now. It's about the tackle situation. Coming up next, what happened and what it means. We'll be right back on Locked On Podcast Network. I know, getting tickets, especially to the big games, the Bengals and the Ravens. I know Chris is working on that one, as well as the Bills, all the in-division games. Sometimes it gets tough, and sometimes you don't know if you're going to be able to pull that off until it's last second. Maybe you have a spot in the arena that you like to go, whether it's away or whether it's home in Arrowhead. You got a spot that you like to see games from. I personally dig 239. That's my section. And I like having that because I know what the view is going to be. If you want to see what a ticket looks like and what that view is, you can see that as well, all at Gametime. It's last-minute tickets. They give you flash deals depending on the zone of the arena that you want to be in, whether it's Arrowhead or somewhere else, and you can get that view. They offer a money-back guarantee. If you find it for a better price, they'll give you 110% of the difference. Super simple, straightforward, and it's all covered with that flexible customer service policy. It's the best in the ticketing industry. It makes all the guesswork get taken out of finding games for Chiefs games at home, Chiefs games away, or whatever else you're looking for from comedy, concerts, theater, whatever you happen to be looking to attend in person, especially if it's last minute. Go check out Gametime for it. Take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $20 off of your first purchase right off the top. Terms do apply, but again, all you got to do is go create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDONNFL. And you're going to get $20 off of that purchase. Download that Gametime app today. It's last-minute tickets, it's lowest prices, and it is guaranteed. Make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today feed as well, because it's 24/7, whatever's going on. Whether it's the Nuggets, the Stars moving on, whatever you're into right now, you can get it anytime. We're on that feed here on the YouTube platform where you can like and sub, and we would appreciate you checking that out. or on Amazon Fire TV. Now, the other thing that has to come in is there's always some worries, and some guys are going to take a stumble from time to time. It's been an off season that has had more than its fair share of hiccups at this point. And the latest, unfortunately, I think puts some cloud over not just the OTAs, but training camp and even what we could see week one. Basically, Godric, and I never say his last name correctly, so I'm going to leave it at Godric, as well as Wanye Morris, got themselves pulled over, arrested the other night for possession. I don't know what the level of it is or whatever it is. It doesn't matter to me at this point because I'm just about tired of seeing all this stuff. But it's very, very keen that it happens to be two of your tackles. And you tell me, did you think both of these guys were going to make the roster? And do you still?
I thought Godric had an outside chance. It's just a question of whether or not he was able to show growth from last year compared to what he looked like. I mean, what kind of growth could he show? Wanye was obviously going to make the roster. I don't think that this is going to change that, but right. It could change whether or not he's going to be even available to be a starter when the season starts. Really, you mentioned this, and it's like, can we just get a week where we don't have somebody in the news? Like just 1 week?
Great. That'd be great. I enjoy that.
The whole when it comes to Wanye, and I know that people are going to argue it's legal in Missouri, whatever. I get all that. Here's the problem. One, it's illegal in Kansas, but really, two, it is against NFL rules, and you still can get suspended for it. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
It's poor decision making and wanting to start. This isn't the way that you would want to go into OTAs. I would imagine that Wanye is probably still going to be the guy that would be getting first string reps tomorrow when OTAs kick off, or I guess today, if you're listening to this on Monday. That would be my guess. If he's not, that'll be a little bit surprising, but maybe it's also Andy Reid sending a message to his team. I mean,
it very well could be. I didn't have Godric making the roster, but I thought practice squad possibility again, but definitely Wanye on the roster. He still will be. The question will be, just as you said, what will be the role? Is there repercussions here without losing the battle that we won't know until September? I think it does give a slight edge, probably in reps, certainly reps with the first team, to Kingsley Suamataia now, that we know that it was going to be a battle. And now there's, I think, less hanging over him a little bit. And if they do choose to allow Wanye to not have as many reps and move those over to Kingsley, I think that obviously will work in any rookie's advantage to get more reps. That's always gold.
The big question with Godric is how much did he improve from 1 year to the next? And that's what we don't know. I do agree with you. I tend to don't think he would probably make the roster, but it's a question of, is he going to be better than Lucas Niang? Because that's really the guy he's got to beat out. And what's Lucas Niang done for the Chiefs over the past couple of seasons? Not much since he came back from his injury. And don't get me wrong, I know it was a gruesome injury. I get that. But you still have to be able to play. And if they're gonna keep 4 tackles, which I expect they're going to, maybe he wasn't going to be a guy that could challenge. There's been people out there that say that a guy like Evan Driscoll could be a guy that the Chiefs could be looking at as their 4th tackle for the season. And that's another possibility. So, Godric definitely wasn't guaranteed to be on the roster. I don't know. I would imagine that they liked him enough that they brought him back this year that they were expecting him to be on the practice squad again to see if he can keep improving. The reality when you start getting into some of this stuff is you only have when you're not as talented as a guy like a Wanye Morris, you only have so many chances. And, obviously that changes for guys like, some of the other superstars, because that's just the reality of the league is you're going to give those guys a couple more chances. And, the other bad news, and this is not about the tackles, but Worthy lost his car. So, I mean, lots of different news. That not really a reflection on him, but I'd like to see the Chiefs stay out of the news, period.
Yeah. That's
really where I'm coming from.
I like that you mentioned I like that you mentioned Driscoll, because he is a wild card here. For those of you that are sad that the Chiefs missed out on Joe Alt, Driscoll's just about the same size. A little bit different reach, but 6'8", good size. I think his feet are better than you would expect, but they're obviously not up to par, in my opinion, for a D1 and a first-round prospect. That's why he was available UDFA. But I will say this, coming from the school and the level of play that he faced, getting into this, if there is a lack of faith in the tackle group, whoever it may be, whether it is somebody in a battle for a starting position or a backup like Lucas Niang, I do think that he has the ability here right now in this next, 5 weeks left of OTAs, and then obviously a gap, and then training camp. He has the ability in that time to make up as much ground as he can. And if he is the athlete that a lot of people think he is, he may be able to push that boundary, and he may be end up somebody that we talk about come down on cutdowns.
Well, and if he can make a name for himself and make it to where he can, step into that role and be the fourth tackle on this team, that's just a huge deal for Kansas City. I mean, you look at, obviously you hope that they never play, but having good young depth at the offensive line is always going to be a boon for your roster. And Kansas City has a great offensive line coach, so I think he has a good chance to get some technical mentoring there. It'll be curious to see, they have OTAs this week, they have OTAs next week, and then the OTAs the week after that. And I think the week after that, they have their mandatory mini camp. And then I think they break until camp in late July. So at that point, you've got basically a month and a half off. And it's going to be a question of who does what during that month and a half. How can they change their ability to possibly push to make the roster? Guys can go work out with Duke Manyweather. They can do lots of different things, working out in different areas. And it's not just tackles. Obviously, it could be wide receivers, could be any position, doing the work and working on that. Obviously, they're going to get some vacation in that time because it is going to be a grind once the season starts in July.
Yeah, and I'm hearing Chiefs might actually go to camp earlier in that 18th or something again. So that cuts down that time off as well. So make the most of it and be prepared.
That's rookies and quarterbacks, right? So so a guy like Driscoll, a guy like Kingsley Suamataia would be there, worthy, all those guys, Amani Bailey, and then the QBs will be there as well. So yeah, they could be starting. They get basically a month and a week off, basically. Still some time to get some work in, to get your body right. Lots you can do in nutrition and losing weight and getting your feet and working on your feet and all that. Lots of different things you can do in that month and a half.
Yeah,
month and 5.
It's going to be
5 weeks to 6 weeks.
It's going to be hot. I'm just getting ready for camp now, and I don't even have to do anything those days. I just got to watch. It's going to be fun. If you guys are excited about OTAs, please let us know who you're looking for. We're going to continue to run down position groups as we go through the next few weeks. We see some evolution here on the field in OTAs, and we get a better feel for it. So we'd like your observations. Leave your thoughts here on the comments on YouTube. Like, sub, and hit that bell. Make sure you get on the podcast side as well as Spotify, at Apple Podcasts, and any podcast platform that you can get for free. You can get us 5 days a week plus. You locos know that. We appreciate you very much. You can get that much more at 816-357-8781. We're going to be back with you tomorrow. Matt and Derek's coming up later in the week as we run down OTAs, official guys on the field doing stuff. Welcome. We hope that you guys will join us. Thanks for spending your time with us today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, same time, same bat station. We'll catch you